Football loves to pretend it has found the perfect way to play. Every few years, the rulebook gets rewritten. Press harder, run faster, invert your wingers, measure everything down to the last meter. The game convinces itself that only one blueprint leads to greatness. But history keeps proving otherwise, because every so often a player comes along who breaks the mold, not with speed, not with strength, not even with goals, but with something far stranger. Think about David Beckham. He wasn't lightning quick like Bale, he didn't dribble through defenses like Ronaldinho, and he didn't rack up goals like Cristiano Ronaldo. Yet his right foot turned the touchline into a weapon of mass destruction, delivering crosses so precise they felt programmed by a machine. And yet, every time Beckham touched the ball, stadiums held their breath. Because what he lacked in explosiveness, he more than compensated for with a right foot that operated like a sniper rifle. Beckham's crosses weren't just deliveries into the box, they were weapons. Arcing, dipping, curling, bending against logic, the ball seemed to obey him. He didn't need to beat 3 defenders to make a difference. He only needed half a yard of space, a tiny crack of daylight, and from there he could turn a routine run into a goal-scoring opportunity. Teammates didn't just want Beckham on the ball, they planned entire movements around him. The moment he shaped up to cross, strikers knew where to be, and defenses panicked because they knew what was coming but couldn't stop it. And then there were the set pieces. Free kicks became Beckham's stage, the moment when pressure and artistry fused. Everyone remembers the Greece goal in 2001, one of the most iconic free kicks in football history. England needed a miracle to qualify for the World Cup. 92nd minute. One shot, one man. Beckham steps up and curls the ball with such precision it might as well have been drawn with a compass. That single strike didn't just send England to the World Cup, it etched Beckham's name into legend. To understand why Beckham's style thrived, you have to understand the era he played in. Football in the 1990s and early 2000s wasn't suffocated by the tactical micromanagement we see today. There were systems, yes, but the game wasn't yet obsessed with pressing triggers, zonal rotations, and data-driven player heat maps. Managers often focused more on empowering individuals than enforcing strict structures, and no manager embodied that balance better than Sir Alex Ferguson. Ferguson didn't build around rigid blueprints. His philosophy was simple: get the best out of his players. He didn't care if Beckham wasn't explosive, if he couldn't run past defenders the way a young Ryan Giggs could, or if his dribbling looked basic compared to flare wingers of the time. Ferguson looked at Beckham's right foot and thought, that is a weapon. So instead of forcing Beckham to adapt to a system, he built a system that adapted to Beckham. That meant freedom. Freedom to stay wide when everyone else drifted inside. Freedom to hit long diagonals from deep instead of short sideways passes. Freedom to play to his strength again and again until opponents cracked. In today's football, players are drilled to occupy exact zones, rehearse pressing schemes, and execute pre-planned movements. Beckham's Manchester United was different. It allowed unpredictability through repetition. You knew Beckham would cross, but you couldn't stop it, because Ferguson gave him license to do it every single time he saw the opportunity. If David Beckham turned the game into geometry, Mesut Özil turned it into poetry. He wasn't interested in running the fastest, pressing the hardest, or scoring the most. His obsession was with one thing only: the pass that no one else saw. The pass that bent defensive lines like they were drawn on sand. Ozil's entire career was built on moments where 22 players thought the play was finished. And then he threaded a ball that made everyone realize they'd missed the real story. Özil didn't dominate with volume. He dominated with silence. He wasn't everywhere, demanding touches and dictating tempo like Xavi or Modric. He was invisible for minutes at a time, drifting across the pitch almost lazily. And then, in 1 second, he'd shatter a defense with a perfectly weighted through ball that unlocked the entire match. That's why watching Özil always felt different. His genius wasn't in controlling the game, but in puncturing it. At Real Madrid, surrounded by Cristiano Ronaldo, Benzema, and Di Maria, Özil was at his most lethal. He didn't need to score because he had runners who thrived on chaos, movement, and speed. His job was simple: feed them. One pass, one flick, one subtle disguise, and suddenly Cristiano was celebrating another goal. And when he moved to Arsenal, he carried that same blueprint, providing the magic that turned half chances into tap-ins, making strikers look better than they actually were. Alexis Sanchez, Olivier Giroud, Aubameyang, all of them profited from Özil's ability to see time 2 seconds ahead of everyone else. Football doesn't wait for anyone. It evolves like a machine, constantly updating its software, discarding anything it considers outdated. And for players like Mesut Özil, the shift was brutal. The role he mastered, the pure number 10, floating between the midfield and the forwards, dictating the last pass, was once the crown jewel of any team. Think of Zinedine Zidane at Real Madrid, Riquelme at Villarreal, Kaká at Milan. They were the playmakers, the magicians, the centerpieces around which entire squads were built. But by the time Özil was peaking, the role was already under siege. Why? Because football had started to demand more from every player. It wasn't enough to just create. You had to score goals. You had to press defenders. You had to run 12 kilometers per game. You had to be part of the machine. Suddenly, the luxury of giving one player complete freedom to only focus on attacking creativity was seen as a weakness. Coaches wanted soldiers who could do everything, not poets who specialized in one thing. If Mesut Özil was accused of being invisible because he walked through games, N'Golo Kanté turned invisibility into his weapon. At first glance, he didn't look like a footballer destined to dominate the biggest stages. He was short for a midfielder, not physically imposing, not blessed with spectacular dribbling or a rocket shot from distance. And yet, the moment the whistle blew, it felt like there were two of him on the pitch. Kanté covered ground like no one else. He didn't just close spaces, he erased them. An opponent would think they had time to turn, and suddenly Kanté was there. A team would launch a counterattack, and within seconds, he would steal the ball with such precision it looked effortless. He wasn't a destroyer who thundered into tackles like Gennaro Gattuso. He wasn't a deep-lying conductor like Andrea Pirlo. He was something in between, a ghost who drifted across the pitch, always appearing in the right place at the right time. At his peak, Kanté made teams feel outnumbered. Coaches would line up with 3 midfielders, only to realize that against Chelsea or France, it felt like they were playing against 4. His stamina was superhuman. His timing was almost supernatural. He didn't need to foul, didn't need to fly recklessly into challenges. He simply waited, anticipated, and struck with precision, stealing possession and instantly transforming defense into attack. The 2018 World Cup was the perfect stage for his brilliance. Surrounded by stars like Pogba, Griezmann, and Mbappé, it was Kanté who held the structure together. He wasn't scoring goals or grabbing headlines, but every French counterattack started with him winning the ball back. Every opponent's build-up collapsed under his silent pressure. And when Chelsea won the Champions League in 2021, it was Kanté who delivered masterclass after masterclass, winning Man of the Match awards in both semifinals and the final. He didn't dominate with highlights, he dominated with inevitability. What made his style so weird is that it broke every expectation of what a world-class midfielder should look like. Normally, we think of great midfielders as imposing generals, players with vision, creativity, or flair. Kanté didn't orchestrate play with Hollywood passes. He didn't smash screamers from 30 yards. He didn't dance past players like a magician. He kept it brutally simple. Win the ball, give it, move, repeat. Over and over for 90 minutes. And somehow, that simplicity became devastating. Football is a game that constantly reinvents itself, convinced that it has found the perfect formula. But the truth is, the sport has never been built on formulas. It has been built on exceptions, on players who looked out of place, who didn't fit the meta, who weren't supposed to succeed, and yet forced the game to change around them. David Beckham wasn't the fastest or the flashiest, but his right foot bent matches into submission. Mesut Özil wasn't the hardest worker, but his vision carved open defenses like a surgeon's scalpel. And N'Golo Kanté wasn't the biggest or the loudest, but he dominated entire midfields through timing and persistence alone. Each of them looked weird by the standards of their time. Each of them was criticized for what they couldn't do. But years later, it's their uniqueness, not their weaknesses, that defines their legacy. Football didn't remember them for being complete players. It remembered them for being unforgettable specialists.